Welcome back to Duffy Dadventurer, where I share some stories of my travels exploring the Australian bush, taking the classic combi out for a spin and hunting for a bit of gold along the way. Well, g'day again. Today something a little bit different. We're going to have a bit of a shoot off in the creek between the old trusty Dream Mat from Gold Rat Engineering and La Trappe by GeoSluice. Now, they're two very different products. Drop riffle sluice in the GeoSluice, very simple to clean out. The Dream Mat with its vortex cells, a little bit more work, but is it more effective? Let's take them down the creek and find out. Just a bit of a size comparison. La Trappe by GeoSluice. Well, you can see immediately it's a much wider piece of equipment. It's more akin to probably a 12-inch sluice. One piece, plastic. It's certainly a lot lighter than the aluminium body of the Dream Mat 888. But this field test out in the creek today is really just about seeing how they operate, how easy they are to use for novices like me, how easy they are to clean out at the end of the day, and importantly, whether they are both catching gold and if they're both catching the really fine stuff up to the chunkier stuff. So in terms of setup, both relatively simple. I have to say that the GeoSluice being wider and pretty flat bottom requires you to have a fairly flat surface underneath, and it might just take a little bit more fiddling around to get it completely level. The 888 is a much narrower piece of equipment. It tends to find a balance much easier in the creek, and because it's a heavier unit as well, seems to sit a little bit down in the water without too much fussing around. Anyway, the real test will be when I start to put some serious material down there. So just after a few shovel loads, probably about half a bucket, quarter of a bucket into each sluice, feeding them is a very different proposition. The GeoSluice is really wide, can take a big shovel load, and seems to be clearing the material really quickly. On the other hand, the Dream Mat with the 888 in the 888 sluice seems to be clearing slower, but is that a good thing? Because there's a lot of black sand on this creek, and is it better to be actually clearing it slower and giving the gold a chance to drop out? Really interesting. They're two very different beasts. Well, the GeoSluice is certainly showing a lot of black sands, pretty much down the length of the sluice, and not so much light material in those first three riffles, and it starts to build up a little bit more as we go down. Now, this is my first time using the GeoSluice, so I'm really just fudging the setup. I'm making it up as I go along, and I'm sure there's a lot more research to be done in how to best run these in a creek. Do they like lower water flow? Do they like more water flow? I've read reviews about how high water flow actually throws them around because they're pretty light, how they sit in the water. On the other hand, the 888 is pretty forgiving. It will accept quite a range of river conditions. You can run it in pretty low flow, particularly if your material is well classified down and if you get the right fall on the sluice. Likewise, put it in a fast water flow and it just gobbles up the gold. It's just fantastic. I really can't say which one I prefer at this stage. This is a really interesting test for me because I'm finding out new stuff with every shovel, and I'm sure when it comes to cleanup time, we'll learn a bit more. Actually getting it out of the creek was a bit delicate. It was a real suction of water over this large surface area, and it actually, I was worried that I was going to lose gold out of it, so I was taking it a bit carefully. But in terms of cleaning it out, I have to say that is an easy clean out. You cannot beat that. That is the quickest cleanup ever. Ready to go back? So by comparison, the Dream Mat sluice is a little bit more complex. You know, you're undoing a couple of bolts, you're sliding the mat out, and of course pulling the mat out carefully so you don't flick gold everywhere. Always rinse the sluice. Now, is it a fair comparison? Well, in many ways, probably not, but it's not so much about whether or not they are like for like. I'm more interested in how they operate on the creek, how easy they are to use and set up and to clean up, and whether or not they're catching the really fine gold that often can get blown out of a sluice. Well, the GeoSluice is certainly picking up different sized pieces of gold. So that's some really fine gold. So there's no question that the GeoSluice is picking that up, which is interesting to see because it cleared the material so quickly. You'd think, oh, the light stuff's being blown away, but nope, here it is. Well, from half a bucket of material, I'd say the Dream Mat has collected probably about the same amount and looks fairly similar in size range too, from some, you know, slightly bigger specks down to some really tiny fly poop. So this certainly is not a scientific test. I guess there are a couple of other considerations which may be more important to you than even how these things perform, and that is where they come from. Now, the GeoSluice is an American product. They're made in America. They're imported to Australia. The shipping is added to the price when you buy it. So, you know, that's probably adding a good 25-30% onto the product. And then, of course, you've got to get it shipped domestically unless you can do a local pickup. On the other hand, the Dream Mat product, the sluice body and the mat itself is made in Queensland and Australia under license from the American parent company. So if you're after a really homegrown Australian product, perhaps you'd be opting that way. Now, whether GeoSluice actually make a serious dent in that market remains to be seen. I guess it really depends on where the price point comes down. And who knows? We live in a crazy world. American products, who knows? They could be giving them away before long, or they could be slapping a 3,000% tariff on them. I can only imagine that we're going to see more and more of them on creeks before too long. And time will tell whether they are as robust as the aluminium sluice. You know, on first blush, I'd have to say that the GeoSluice is very lightweight. Like it weighs virtually nothing. The Dream Mat and the aluminium sluice from Gold Rat will continue serving me for 5 or 10 years. Who knows how much abuse it's going to get. Will the GeoSluice still be around in 5 or 10 years? I don't know. I reckon I will have done a few repairs on it by then. It'll be interesting to see how the compound holds up, because at the end of the day, we're dealing with rocks, sand, gravel, natural environments. You know, they're thrown in the back of people's cars and utes and whatever. They're going to take an absolute pounding. And whether or not the GeoSluice can hold up to that, well, watch this space. So what's your initial reaction, Lockie?
I think it's pretty cool. Clears pretty well. I just got to see a good gold cleanup. Yep. But definitely collects all those black sands beautifully and gets rid of those whites.
And compared to the Gold Rat, it's just really different, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's just the Gold Rat takes its time a little bit more, I think. I really don't know about the collection rates yet, but you can see it moves along and it collects all the black sand, so it has to collect gold.
And it depends what you're after. Are you after something that's really lightweight and you can just throw on the back of a backpack if you're wanting to trek in a few kilometres to a good gold site? Are you after something that's a little bit more robust and will take more punishment? Choice ultimately is yours.
I got to say, mate, I think you're getting the hang of this a little bit more each time you come out.
Is that because I'm beating you today?
It's because you're absolutely annihilating me today, yeah.
Well, made it through to the end of another day out on the creek. It's been absolutely beautiful down here. Wonderful and really good to run the two sluices side by side to get a feel for how they each operate. Just one little postscript. I've pretty much had it for today. I've moved a lot of buckets, I've moved some very big rocks. But I thought, I'm just going to run 2 more buckets just to see how it's going. And you know what? The GeoSluice got the job, because I just couldn't bear the thought of setting up the poor old Gold Rat 888 again. So this thing is just quick to process, quick to clean up. I'm still undecided as to whether it catches more gold, but if you're talking about 2 bonus buckets at the end of the day when you're about to throw it in, and then, yeah, GeoSluice gets you over the line. Anyway, just a random thought. Until next time, see you around.